Welcome to episode 6 of See It Like Strev. We're talking about week 7 in the CFL. Guys, at that time of year, the two Ds are coming into play. We got defense and we got depth. We had 3 quarterbacks this week that were backup starting the year that ended up playing for their football teams. It's just important. We've talked about it week in and week out, how important it is to have depth at that number 2 position, especially when you have a 21-week regular season. Guys, you're going to need your backup to step in and win games. And again, we had 3 teams that had to turn to their backups this week. And the teams that have depth at that position, they're going to end up leapfrogging in the division and put themselves in a position to make a deep playoff run and potentially even win their division. We got to talk about the quarterback depth because it's such a hot topic on social media right now. And within the CFL, there's a need to develop more backup quarterbacks, no doubt. But we've been talking about how high level the quarterback play has been thus far in the year because we have so many veterans playing. But when you look around the league, you see guys like Zach Collaros, you see Trevor Harris, you see Bo Levi, some veteran guys, even Vernon Adams, who've been around the league for a while. When they retire, who's going to be the next guy up? And obviously the only way you can develop guys is by getting them reps. But how are we going to go out and find new talent for this league to help these guys develop? You look at the UFL, being able to poach some of that talent and bring them up to the CFL and say, hey guys, UFL, you want to go to the NFL and give that a year, fine. But you want to have a career, you want to have a real sustained career where you can play 10, 15 years and make real money, come on up to the CFL. And I think the way that we end up doing that would be having a little salary cap that's set aside for quarterbacks and for these developmental prospects, because with the current landscape of NIL, a lot of these quarterbacks that are at major schools are not going to want to come up to the CFL and play for 85,000 Canadian dollars. You have to be able to incentivize a little bit more and say, hey, we'll pay you a little bit extra. You're going to come up, you're going to develop. We're going to give you an opportunity to learn the game and grow and also start to establish yourself as a career. So that's kind of my 2 cents about quarterback depth and how the CFL can continue to develop guys. That way, when these veterans that we've seen play at such a high level end up retiring, we're able to have some good players coming up behind them. We also saw some rule changes coming into effect this week with the missed field goal not being a point. Previously in past seasons, if you kicked the ball out the back of the end zone, even if it was a missed field goal, that was going to be a point. This year, they've now changed that rule where you miss a field goal, that's not a point. Toronto ends up losing that game. They missed the field goal. Could have been a point last year. This year it wasn't. I love that rule. We shouldn't be giving out points and rewarding teams for missed field goals. And then we also saw the overtime rules coming into play in the Ottawa versus Montreal game there at the end where there's no ties. I love that as well. And guys, all 4 games this week decided by 1 possession. It came down to the last possession of the game in the 4th quarter in overtime. Can't ask for anything better than that. Let's get into this week's slate of games. We had BC going to Edmonton to kick this week off. Edmonton wins 19-17. Nathan Rourke goes down with a shoulder injury on the second play of the game. I was having some trouble getting the game up down here in the States, and my phone's blowing up like, hey, Nathan Rourke got hurt. I'm like, I have no idea what happened. See him walking out of the locker room with a sling on. Looks like it's his left shoulder. Sounds like it's not going to be too serious, but it does seem like he's going to miss a couple weeks. And they end up turning to Chase Brice. And I like him. This is his first real game experience. He's kind of been in some mop-up duties. I like his game. Obviously, he struggled this week with the 4 interceptions, but I'm a glass half full guy. And one thing I like about him is he didn't lose confidence. He kept slinging the ball. Late in the game, he's rolling out to left, throws a pass with his left hand. He's out there fighting. He didn't seem to lose confidence. And at the end of the day, if you're BC, you're going to have to go back to him again this week. So how do they adjust this week, giving him a full week of practice, kind of tailoring the game plan to some of the things that he likes to do, maybe dialing some things back? I still believe in him. I think he has a strong arm. I think he sees the field, and I got to give him another chance to go out there next week and prove that he can continue to develop and be one of those next guys up when you talk about this quarterback depth within the league. Flipping over to the other side of the coin, the Edmonton defense forces 5 turnovers. Obviously, they get the 4 interceptions, and then on the last drive of the game, BC's driving out to go and try to win. They end up getting a turnover on downs and getting off the football field. The thing I love about Edmonton is they're just finding different ways to win football games. Justin Rankin only rushes for 19 yards, and they still go win a game. Cody Fajardo continues to play consistently. He just avoids the big mistakes and just continues to find ways to keep them on the field and move the football. Edmonton's a well-rounded team, guys. They've won games in all different fashions this year, and to see their defense coming up big this week, making massive plays, forcing turnovers, and continuing to get the ball back to their offense, even when their MOP candidate only has 19 yards on the ground, tells me a lot about Edmonton and where they can go this year. So for Edmonton, you're sitting at 5-1. You are in the thick of the West race, right at the top. You got a big matchup next week against Sask. And if you're BC, man, you drop down to 1-4. You're sitting in a tough position. I mean, you're probably looking at a potential crossover. They'll probably still be in the hunt for that, given the state of the East. But, you're kind of looking like Calgary's right there. But at the end of the day, 1-4 is going to be tough to kind of get back into that third spot with the West, given where everyone else is at. So you're probably looking at a potential crossover, but I'm not going to close the door on that. But again, you're going to need a backup quarterback to go in and win you some football games. The next game, we had Montreal going to Calgary. They played last week, and Montreal wins this week again, 38-32. Just another elite game, very similar to the first time they played, where Montreal kind of controlled the game early on. Calgary ends up making a push in the second half, making it tight. They go down to try to go ahead and score a touchdown at the end. Ultimately, they would have won the game. They were only down 6. You score a touchdown and kick the PAT, you win. They're driving. Big completion. Montreal ends up poking the ball out, gets a fumble recovery, ends up icing the game. Last week, they end up batting the ball down on third down. So Montreal stopping those late game drives and being able to close out a game. If you're looking at Montreal, to me, they're the best team in the league. The way that they've been able to continue to win games in different fashions is extremely impressive, but they got to put teams away. They seem to be in these games where they're in complete control and they just let teams hang around. And what great teams do is they step on your neck and they finish it off. So if they're going to want to continue to take that next step and get over the hump this year and win the Grey Cup, they're going to have to learn how to continue to put teams away and not let them hang around. That game probably shouldn't have been close with the way that they were controlling the game early on. You look at their quarterback right now, Davis Alexander, man. What more can we say about him? He's the best quarterback in the CFL. He goes for 402 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's had over 300 yards passing in every single game this year. He's playing tremendous. I mean, you got him behind center, healthy, rolling the way that he is. You're going to have a chance to win every single football game. Looking at Calgary, VA, still playing clean football. He goes for 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, still has not thrown an interception this year. Anytime your quarterback's not throwing interceptions and staying away from turnovers, you're going to have a chance to stay in games. And that's what kind of keeps them in games. Even though he was not perfect this game, he had some passes that were maybe Montreal could have made plays or weren't completely accurate. When you're not turning the ball over and avoiding those big mistakes, you're always going to have a chance to rally. And that's what they did. They just came up a little bit short. They also got Dedrick Mills going on the ground again, which was good to see for him. 130 yards and a touchdown. Look, even though Calgary's sitting at 2-4, they were 2-2 when they played Montreal back-to-back. Obviously, they've lost both those 2 games by 1 score. Drive at the end to go win. They don't get it done. I still think Calgary can be a team that can make the playoffs in the West and at the very least cross over. They've got such a well-rounded offense. They've got some weapons with Philpott, Brooks, Barnes, Brissett, Tevin Jones, and then Dedrick Mills, and the way Vernon Adams is taking care of the football. They've got a solid defense with a lot of playmakers in the back end, and their defensive line is one of the most underrated in the league. I still think Calgary can be a dangerous team come playoff time, whether they end up at third in the West or end up crossing over to the East. But Montreal gets it done this week, 38-32. Again, still looking like the best team in the CFL right now. Later on that evening, we had Toronto going to Hamilton. Hamilton gets it done, 24-23. Hamilton gets back to 3-3. Huge win against a division rival. They're going to end up probably battling Toronto off for that second spot in the East. So this was a huge win, especially in this first third of the season. Tre Ford gets the start. They move on from Jake Dolegala. And we've all said it. Jake Dolegala was not the problem in Sask. There was a lot of things that went wrong. No one had their A game. That offense needed a spark. They needed some explosiveness. And that's exactly what Tre Ford got them. He goes for 218 yards passing, 109 yards rushing, and a touchdown. And you saw that explosiveness so early in the game. There was a 2-play sequence where Darius Pickett blitzes off the edge. He's untouched. Tre Ford makes a miss, rolls out to the right side, picks up a first down with his legs, and then the very next play, drop back pass, sitting in the pocket, steps up hard, running towards the line of scrimmage. The defensive backs and linebackers start to step up, and he finds Kenny Lawler for a nice jump ball touchdown in the back of the end zone. To me, that was a 2-play sequence that said, okay, Tre Ford's ready to play. He's going to start to settle in. And was he perfect throwing the football? No, absolutely not. But he's going to continue to get more comfortable. They're going to continue to find ways to develop that offense around his skill set. And to see him go in there and give that offense the spark the way that he did with those playmakers that they have at receiver, I think they've got a real shot to beat Toronto and win second place in the East. I think Montreal is going to end up being first if everything stays healthy the way that they're rolling. But really good to see that from Tre Ford, getting the start this week and going and giving that offense the spark that they need. And anytime you have a quarterback that can pick up a few first downs with his legs within a game, man, that is just such a weapon for your offense. Talk about the Hamilton defense, man. They made some plays down the field. You know, Chad Kelly and this Toronto offense, they are not afraid to chuck that ball downfield. And they were able to make some big plays in the back end, breaking up some one-on-one footballs, and they showed me something with their back end, obviously outside of Stavros, but some other guys going out and making some plays. Looking at Chad Kelly in Toronto, man. Chad Kelly, he seems like he's a lock every week to go for 300. He goes for 322 this week and a touchdown. Man, their defense and special teams just didn't have it tonight. They didn't make enough plays. They're not having a run game on offense. It's hard when you're throwing for over 300 yards a game and you're just not able to finish it. They missed 3 kicks, 2 field goals and a PAT, and special teams giving up big returns. You just can't get the running game going. You need a team effort. You need a full 3-phase football game if you want to win games, especially with the way that their offense is explosive, one of the best receiving corps in the league as well, and the way that Chad Kelly's not afraid to push the ball down the field. They can be a good team if they find ways to put together a complete football game, which I don't think they've done yet this year, maybe except for against Sask when they went into Regina and won that game. If they do that, I think they can make a push for second in the East. But again, Hamilton getting this game is going to be huge for those standings moving forward. Last game of the weekend, we had Winnipeg going to Ottawa. One of the most exciting games. I'm still catching my breath. I just finished watching that game. I just jumped over here to record this. But Winnipeg wins 36-34 in a double, triple, quadruple overtime game with these new rules. But this was the most exciting game of the year by far, I would say. I love seeing these new overtime rules coming into play. So previously, in other years, if both teams trade scores after 2 back and forths, it's going to be a tie. And that's what happened. Both teams got the ball twice, kicked field goals both times. Again, last year that would have been a tie. But instead, this year, they go to alternating 2-point conversions. So Winnipeg and Ottawa both score on their first possession. Winnipeg scores on their second possession there, and then Ottawa goes and gets stopped. Just an awesome way to finish a game. I'm of the thought process that, man, there just shouldn't be ties in football. You want to see a winner. You want to see a loser. Teams are traveling across the country to go play football. Someone needs to win. Someone needs to lose. Huge win for Winnipeg to move to 4-2 and really right in the thick of that hunt for the West, given the fact they haven't even played Sask yet this year. They're going to have to play Edmonton again, so they're right where they want to be in Winnipeg. Ottawa really controlled this football game, though, man, and just a heartbreaking loss for them to be controlling it the way that they were and allowing Winnipeg to completely storm back in the fourth quarter and force overtime. Just a huge comeback by Winnipeg and really a devastating loss for Ottawa there to go to 0-6 and still seeking their first win of the season. Drew Brown, 2 weeks in a row, stepping in for Zach Collaros, going for 317 yards and 2 touchdowns, spreading the ball around too, man, offensively. Like, it's not like he's locking in on one guy. He's got Dembski. He's got Tim White. He's got Pokey. He's got Tommy Neal. Spreading the ball around. And they haven't really even got Brady going on the run game yet. So if they're able to spread the ball around in the pass game the way that they are, and they get Brady rolling on the ground, man, this is going to be a very, very dangerous team. Now, their defense needs to step up a little bit. They gave up quite a few yards. Jake Mayer goes for 344 and a touchdown. So being able to tighten up a little bit there. Now, they did make some really big stops as Ottawa was driving down in the red zone. They were able to get 3 consecutive stops on the 1-yard line and get a turnover on downs, which was a huge play. If they give up a couple of those touchdowns early, this game's probably put away. So they were able to bend but not break, so to speak, but they got to be a little bit more firm and not bending quite as much there. And we mentioned Jake Mayer just a second ago. He's not the issue, man. I've been saying it all year. He is not the issue. He goes for 344 yards and a touchdown. It's tough, man. I mean, you're not getting the run game going. Defense gives up that lead there in the fourth quarter. You got to feel for him. He's doing everything he can. They're battling. And if you're Ottawa sitting at 0-6 going into the bye week, I think everyone's got to take a long look in the mirror and say, okay, how do we want to finish out this season? We have 12 games left. Who knows what the future holds here? But we got to hold our head high and just continue to fight week in and week out. And I think Jake Mayer is going to continue to put good stuff on tape. And, I hope for his sake that they're able to put a couple wins together here, because I can only imagine how frustrating that's been for them. But Winnipeg moves to 4-2, again, in the thick of the West race. They're going to have a chance to potentially win the West with all these upcoming games that they have. And Ottawa's sitting at 0-6, doing some soul searching, heading into their bye week. All right, let's get into the most prestigious award in the regular season in the CFL, the CNN Award. This one feels obvious. We've been talking about this guy all season, but he breaks the CFL record for the most attempts and the most completions without an interception. He's gone for over 300 yards in all 6 games. He went for over 400 this week. He's playing in rhythm. And when it gets out of rhythm, when it's an off-schedule play, he extends those plays and pushes the ball down the field better than anybody in the league. But here's why he's seeing it. He's playing smarter. Even when he's a little banged up, he knows how to take care of his body. He knows when to get out of bounds. He knows a crucial time in the game where he needs to go head first into a defender, get to a 3rd and 1, and get them a first down. He's in complete control of the game at all times. Davis Alexander, you're on a historic pace. Keep it up. You are seeing it. I love watching you play football, buddy. Let's look ahead to next week because we got some really, really exciting games coming up. We got Edmonton going to Sask to kick the weekend off. I am so excited for this game. Can Edmonton go to Sask on the road and beat the Riders, a team that we've said pretty much all season that they're the number one team in the league? Now I put Montreal ahead of them right now, but man, Sask is a really, really tough team, especially at home. Coming off a bye week, they're going to be well rested. If Edmonton goes into Sask and beats them, they're already a contender to win the West. But to me, that really, really leapfrogs them into a very, very dangerous position. We know they're a well-rounded team, but going on the road in Sask in what's going to be a tough environment, that'd be a huge win for them. So I'm extremely excited to see that test for Edmonton going out to Regina to kick the weekend off. Then we got Friday, Calgary's going to Winnipeg. I'm going to be at that game. I'm extremely excited about that. I'll be doing some media and some radio work pre and post game, potentially going on the call with the boys on CJOB. So looking forward to that. My biggest thing with this game is going to be, is Zach coming off the 6-game injured list? I know they did that last week, and I don't think they're afraid to pull him back off if he's healthy. Obviously, he's the starter for that football team, but is he healthy? With the way Drew Brown's playing, 2 games in a row, 300 yards, 2 wins, maybe you say, hey, there's no reason to rush Zach back. Let's give him another week. He's playing good football, so I'm interested to see what happens with that decision. And then looking at VA on the other side of things, can he keep the stat sheet clean? If he's not turning the ball over, that team is going to have a chance to win football games no matter what. And Winnipeg has not done great against the run this season. They did okay against Ottawa. Ottawa hasn't had a run game all year. But if Calgary can get Dedrick Mills going and VA can play clean football, that's going to be a really, really close game. So I'm excited to see this matchup in the West with 2 teams that are sitting at 3rd and 4th. But if Winnipeg beats Calgary and wins both those 2 games against Calgary, they kicked off the season against them and now they're playing them again. That would really start to separate them in that West. That would put Calgary at 2-5 and Winnipeg to 5-2. That's a tough gap to close if you're Calgary. So a pretty crucial game when you're looking at how things might stack up in the West later on in the season. Jumping to Saturday, we've got Toronto going to BC, our 2 World Cup teams who have gone on the road every single game this season, which is just treacherous. But BC finally gets to go home. And look, I said it before, but I believe in Chase Brice. I'm excited to see him get a full week of practice as the starter, getting those reps. I talked about it on social media this week, but when you're the backup, you just don't get reps in practice. And for a guy that hasn't really played a ton of meaningful snaps in his career, this week of practice is going to be super important for him to say, okay, I'm comfortable with this. I'm seeing this. I'm not seeing this. What do I want in? There's a lot of that back and forth dialogue, especially when you have a backup quarterback who's smart like he is. I'm sure Buck Pierce will have a good game plan in for him that'll allow him to be successful and move the football. Toronto, their offense is always going to be explosive. We know that, but they need their defense and special teams to step up and help their offense if they're going to want a chance to win this game and kind of stay right with Hamilton there in the East in terms of that second place spot. So Toronto going to BC are 2 World Cup teams. BC finally getting a home game. Then we close out the weekend. Hamilton going to Montreal. This is going to be another test for Tre Ford. I mean, you go and beat Toronto's defense and play well against them, that's one thing. Montreal, that's a different beast. They're going to show you a lot of different looks. They're going to be a lot of different variable fronts, different pictures in the back end, really being good with your eyes and seeing the rotation and knowing where your pressure's coming from, where your hots are. That's going to be a good test for him as he continues to settle in that starting position for Hamilton. And Montreal, again, if they go beat Hamilton, they're going to have an even more firm grip on the East, and they won't be looking back with having won both games against Hamilton. If they get it done this week, they also opened up the season with a win versus Hamilton in Hamilton to kick things off. And you look at Davis Alexander. Will he go for his 7th straight game over 300 yards? He's playing ridiculous. Love watching that dude compete and lead what I think is the best team in the CFL right now. Guys, week 7 was electric. Every single game down to the final possession. I love this league. I love the CFL. I cannot wait for next week. Hey, like, follow, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate you guys. And as always, that's how you see it like Strev.